Okay, so now we have Jennifer Mullin talking about manifesting your personal sanctuary. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good.
So I am Jennifer Mullin. You're welcome to call me Jenny if you'd like. Um, this is a little outside of my comfort zone because I, like you, Kay and Charmy, don't love to be recorded. I don't like seeing myself or hearing myself. And, I have agonized over this. Although I'm happy to be invited to do the presentation, has been worried about it and really, really stressed about what in the world I could talk about or what information I could give people that might be useful, that you didn't already know, or that you couldn't learn on your own or from somebody else who's far more knowledgeable than me. I stressed about how my gardens looked and the laundry list of tasks that I feel like I need to accomplish, the edging and the weeding and the planting and all of that. And I was really getting myself into, a tailspin. I think everybody can appreciate that. And then I finally, a couple of days ago, realized what I was doing. And it's something that I thought I had gotten a much better handle on personally, but somehow I'd fallen into that old habit of focusing on the negatives and focusing on the lack and my perceived inadequacies and that of my garden. And because I really feel that gardening and life have amazing parallels. And our landscapes that we are manipulating, our gardens, are really are reflections of us. And when I realized what I was doing, focusing on all those negatives and the lack of, instead of all the positives, all of the beauty, all the things that I've achieved, both in my life and my gardens, um, all of the things I've overcome in life in my gardens, then I suddenly got very calm and thought, you know what? Everybody has knowledge. Everybody has wisdom they've gained over their lifetime, whether it's through events or crises, things they've overcome, whether it's personal or self-evaluation, introspection. We all have something to share. And as long as that information is presented in a way that's honest and heartfelt, it'll resonate with someone. And hopefully be useful to someone. So that kind of got me over and out of that tailspin I was in. And so when I think about gardens and my relationship to them and how they're mirrors of us, over my lifetime, although I've been a gardener most of my adult life, I realize that as I've gotten older, how much more important they are to me and how much more important nature in general is to me, and how I really didn't want to be just an observer in life, but a participant. And for me, a lot of that involves being outdoors in nature, whether it's traveling and seeing new landscapes or in my own yard, and everything in between, that I didn't want to just observe it, though observing is important and being a good observer is important. And gardens certainly are visually uh, beautiful. I really wanted to immerse myself and feel like I was a part of all of that. And I realized how important all of that is to me. And how, when we are in our gardens or in gardens in general, how immersive an experience that is. How you're really utilizing all of your senses, your, sense of touch, where your hands are in the soil or you're touching the plants. Um, the sense of smell, obviously. I mean, just green growing things, or, the scent of flowers, or, a tomato in the sun, tasting the herbs or edible flowers, um, just and feeling, the wind or all of that. You utilize all of your senses and how important that is. It's such an immersive, very sensual experience. And so when we are creating or manipulating our outdoor space, I think that when you're starting, it's really important to not just think, oh, I like this plant or that plant. I really love that tree. And you know how all of us are probably who love plants. You go somewhere and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to have that one. Oh my God, that's really beautiful. I need to find a place to put that.
Mhm.
We all have that, I think. But I think it's important when we're starting to first uh, think about the space that we are wanting to modify or create, how we're going to use it. How is that space going to be utilized? Even if you're talking about, indoor plants. If thinking about your entire house and how you're going to position plants is too overwhelming, or if you're thinking about your entire yard and you're trying to figure out how you're going to deal with it is too overwhelming, then drill it down to one little vignette, one little corner, one little spot, and think about how is that spot going to be utilized. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, how do I want it to feel? What's the aesthetic? Don't even think about, what kind of colors I want, what kind of plants do I want, but just think about, how do I want this area to feel? And for people who have a hard time visualizing or understanding about manifesting, that's sometimes, I think, an easier thing to do, is to, instead of trying to visualize something, think about how you want it to feel. And oftentimes when I'm trying to do any visualization or manifesting in that way, I will do it as I'm going to bed at night. The first thing when you get in bed, just in the dark and you're tired and you're in that space sort of between awake and sleep, it's sometimes easier to kind of shut off all of the craziness in your mind, and just to think about, how do I want this to feel? And those two things, I think, are a good place to begin. How is the space going to be used? Is it going to be, I want to sit out there in the morning and have breakfast and a cup of coffee, and I want it to be peaceful? Or are all my kids and grandkids coming over and they're going to be running around and playing games, and we're going to have a barbecue and we're going to picnic? Or do I want to have a nice place to sit in my swing or hammock and read a book? Or do I want to sit in the evening and watch the sunset and have a glass of wine? Or, how is that space going to be used? Or is it a walkthrough? Is it a path? And am I going somewhere? And think about how you want that to feel. So I'm going to take you on my walk, take you through my garden spaces. I will try not to lose you as I switch to my phone, but I'll set this up by saying that I bought my little 1837 gingerbread house back in 2012. It's just me. And those of you who might have seen the couple of pictures I posted a couple days ago of how the house and the outside looked when I first bought it, there's pretty much nothing here but a bunch of bushes right in front of the house and nothing else. The only thing I kept was the rhododendron and I kept the lilac. Everything else has been a process since about 2013. So because this is a little gingerbread house, and to me it was always so charming when I would ride by it or drive by it, I really wanted sort of a cottage garden, sort of a traditional English cottage garden around the house. I really felt like that was the aesthetic I was going for. So over the years, that's what I've been working on. So I am going to mute and stop my video on this screen, and I'm going to transfer over to my phone, and hopefully I won't lose everybody. Okay? All right, give me a second.
Everything's so. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. You hear me and see me?
Yes.
Okay, that's a start. So I am going to switch my camera around in a moment, and I think I'm going to switch to my sunglasses so that maybe I'll be able to see my screen a little better. No, I don't know. Maybe not. Well, I'll bring my other glasses with me just in case. So I am going to walk with you out to the road, to the front of the house, so that you can see the facade of the house. Okay. Now I'm going to turn my camera around.
You're frozen, Jennifer. I don't know if you can hear me or not.
We might have lost her.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Patricia.
We're having some technical difficulty, but our guest speaker should be back any minute. I wonder if she realizes that she lost us. I hope.
I'm seeing on my screen that she's muted herself. Oh, well, wait a minute. Now, no,
I don't
I'll,
see her at all.
I'll
I don't
text-
even, actually, you know what? You're right. I don't even see her.
I'll text her phone.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, here she is.
There we go.
She's coming in.
Oh, yeah, I see her. I don't see her, but I see that she's coming back in.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can
Yes.
hear you.
We can't see
Okay.
you, but we can hear you.
Okay, hang on. There.
Hi,
So
welcome
what
back.
happened? Thanks. What happened is my phone got too hot.
Oh, goodness.
Oh,
Was out in the sun and got too hot.
Oh,
So I'm going to try again to turn this around. And I think you can see, but let's see.
Okay. you can see the beautiful lilac.
I want, yes. I'm trying to be able to make that picture large so that I can see what I'm showing you, but I was able to do it really. I don't know why it's large. What the heck? Okay. Well. Okay. Well, I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to do that. I will hope that you can see. I will aim the camera in the direction I think it needs to be. So I'm going to take you out to the front of the house, first of all, so that you can get a general sense of the house and the garden, the cottage garden. I can't see a darn thing because it is so bright. So hopefully you can see. This is the house. And I'm going to walk to my right here so that you can get the general sense of the cottage garden. So you'll see sort of in the corner near the house that is the rhododendron I was talking about. I did keep that. Nothing else is
There is the rhododendron.
the one that is right in the corner of the house.
Oh,
has
yes.
little
Okay. I was going to say it didn't look like a rhododendron.
No, the one that's in the corner of the house is the rhododendron. This tree in front I planted in 2013, and it looked like a stick with like 4 arms. It looked pretty sad. But this is a dwarf weeping crab called Ruby Tears. And, you know, with proper pruning, it's just been spectacular. And I'll get closer in a moment, but it's starting to open up. The buds are starting to open. It smells so beautiful. And the bloom time overlaps with the lilac, which is, you know, now in bloom. So this lilac I kept, but everything else I have planted over the years. And so, as I said, my vision for this was of a cottage garden. I just thought that, you know, the style of the house, the age of the house just lent itself to that. So it's, you know, an evolutionary process. But this is the general layout. So the house sits rather close to the road, and you know, I didn't see the point of having the grass here. I'm not a huge fan of lawn. And it just made sense to me to make this into a cottage garden. The other thing is I really knew that I wanted a little patio out front so that, we could come out and have breakfast and a cup of coffee. And, but I didn't want to feel completely on display. It's not that I wanted to hide from my neighbors or, hide them from me, but I really wanted to have a bit of a sense of intimacy and, feel like I was part of the garden and not just simply sitting out there on display. This is another little part of it. Of course, I have irises in here and the candy tuft. I can't remember the botanical name. And the yellow flowers are leopard's bane. There's some lemon balm in there. There's evening primrose. There's a little bit of lavender. And then I have a wonderful honeysuckle climbing up there that smells amazing when it's in bloom. And so in here, I've planted around the mailbox, I've got morning glories planted, and I have that thumbergia I just put in. So, and the morning glories are the blue. So that'll look really beautiful again this year, I think. I have lots of Shasta daisies in here. I have lavender. I have lady's mantle and peonies. And you can see they're going by, but you can see the daffodils. I literally planted hundreds last year, and they did amazingly well. I'm so pleased. But I have really decided to put my energy into daffodils and alliums rather than the tulips that I had started out doing years ago, just because even though I love tulips, they do get eaten by critters and they just don't consistently do well as the years go by. So that's my reasoning for kind of switching it up a little bit. So in here, I agonized over the path that I wanted to do, what I wanted. In fact, I agonized over paths in general. I don't know, but paths are important and I love paths through gardens. But I just didn't know what I wanted to use for it. And I finally decided I'm just gonna put down cardboard and I'm going to put down wood chips. Yes, I know I'll have to, put down subsequent layers of it, etc., and perhaps weed. But I really wanted to feel a little bit more organic and not have to worry about tripping over stones or, pavers and things like that. So that was my reason for that choice. So I have a love of peonies and I have a lot of them. I counted when I recently got a few more from my friend Cindy, and I think I have 14 just in the cottage garden area. And the ones I got from my friend Cindy, we don't even know what colors they are. So that's going to be a surprise. So are you guys still with me?
Yes, we are.
Oh, good.
Now you made the leaf.
Yes. Yes. So I'll try to get out of the way. So one of the things that I make are concrete garden leaves that I sell at fairs and also in a number of shops around the state, including the botanical gardens and Tower Hill Botanic Garden in Massachusetts. So this one is an old one that actually the tip broke off. So I kept that one. That is made from a burdock leaf. And then those three, I hope you can see them, those three stepping stones are made from rhubarb leaves.
Very nice.
Thank you. So
Beautiful.
thank you. So this is the blossoms of the ruby tears. Can you see that okay?
Yes, they're beautiful, gorgeous.
Yeah.
They really, really are. It's, one of those investments I made years ago that I'm just so grateful for. They're really beautiful and smell so amazing. So in here, I have a lot, variety of things, but I have a lot of foxglove. They seeded in last year or the year before, and I had they went bonkers. And so I've got foxglove everywhere in this cottage garden. But you know, that's what I like about a cottage garden. It's sort of controlled chaos.
Yeah.
Remember what I said about a mirror of our lives, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe that says a little more about me than I want. I don't know.
It's
But
beautiful.
controlled chaos.
What
Thank
is
you.
the
So this
definition of a
right
cottage
here-
garden, Jennifer?
Well, you know, if you go online and you Google English cottage gardens, you'll see lots of images. And you know, it's if you had this image in your mind of this lovely little stone cottage in England or somewhere over in Great Britain, and it's just surrounded by this lush kind of blowsy garden with roses, you know, scrambling over the door, and peonies, and you know, delphiniums and hollyhocks and foxglove, you know, that kind of a wonderful sort of drifts and blowsy sort of flowers. That's sort of what that image is. And of course you can put anything you want, but there are lots of flowers that are, you know, often associated with a cottage garden. So that's sort of what I was going for here. This is some perennial moss. And, you know, when we're talking about our connections with nature and gardens, when I was a kid, I mean, my parents always gardened, and we had a big vegetable garden, and we had lots of things growing in our yard that of course I appreciated much more as they got older, but I always loved being out there. And we had perennial mums growing at the end of our house. And I just remember when I was a child going out to weed and the scent of those mums. And anybody who's grown them knows it's not like they have this beautiful floral scent like roses or peonies, but they do have a particular scent. And it was always pleasant to me and was a nice memory. And so that's the reason I wanted to plant it in my garden, just because I liked that association. And so, you know, gardens don't have to just be all about color and, you know, the beauty of a flower. It can be things that connect you with a memory that is precious to you. So, you know, it makes a garden very personal. This is a rose. I don't even know the variety. It came from my parents' property in Pennsylvania on top of a mountain. The house is extremely old. No idea how long it had been there, but I brought a piece back many years ago, and that's a piece of it. So again, it's a connection to, you know, my childhood happy memory. This is flax. Has anybody ever grown flax?
No.
Any of you ever
No,
grown
I
flax?
haven't. No.
Years ago, at my other house, I grew it, and I decided I wanted to grow it again here. It does seed in, and I've noticed this year that it has seeded in like gangbusters. I'm not sure how I feel about that yet. I'll let you know. But it's a beautiful blue flower, absolutely beautiful, and they bloom forever. So if you're looking for something that blooms for a long time, like all season, this is a great choice. Now, I suppose you could, you know, deadhead it as things go by so it doesn't seed in and go crazy like it has in my garden. But it is really a lovely plant, tiny little blue flowers, but really lovely. So there's more of the candy tuft. I divided my candy tuft last year because I noticed that it was starting to get crowded out by the evening primrose, which is also very bossy. I love evening primrose. I love the lemony yellow of it, but it does get bossy. So be careful where you put it. And then of course there's the wonderful grape hyacinths, which really do smell like grape soda. I love them. And I've got some little violets, white violets. And then this here is a meadow rue, which I really love. It's tall, gets all the way up to the top of this shepherd's hook. Really, really pretty. And then, of course, lots of foxglove. This is Japanese anemone, which is one of my all-time favorite flowers. I love the way the buds look. The flowers are beautiful. You know, they get a lot of foliage down here, and then the flowers are tall. It's just really, really beautiful. So walking this way, I have an awful lot of lamb's ear that I'm going to be digging up and potting and selling. If anybody wants lamb's ear, let me know. I love the foliage of the lamb's ear. Of course, the flowers, you know, they're not so exciting, and they can get kind of messy looking when the flowers are in bloom. So I actually will often cut back the flower stalks just so that I can have the foliage. And then in here, there are a variety of things. There's heuchera and hosta. That's another one of the roses from my parents' place in Pennsylvania, peonies. Some wonderful columbine. These are some of the alliums I planted last year. I can't wait to see how they look. Another one of my garden leaves. The other thing that I really feel like is important in gardens is water. And this is a water fountain that was gifted to me. That was a fountain in the garden of a friend of Marie and mine. Her name was Terry. She has since passed. And so I love having this fountain as a lovely water feature in the garden, but also as a reminder of our friend. And then here, this is a clematis that I got from Hummingbird Farm here in Maine. Has anybody ordered anything from Hummingbird Farm or heard of it?
I've never heard of it. No.
I've never heard of it.
Well, they're a local Maine farm only for clematis.
Exclusively clematis, right?
Yes, exclusively.
They have a
And
Facebook page.
They
You shouldn't
do.
have told me.
So here's the thing. They have wonderful descriptions, which I find so helpful. They break them down into groups and break them down so that you can understand about the pruning. You know how clematis, certain ones need to be pruned at certain times or not pruned or whatever.
Yep.
And it's an excellent page. So I would recommend them. I just ordered 2 more and got them in the mail like day before yesterday. So I've got to figure out where I'm putting them. So in here, all around, this is our shed, and all around the shed when I moved in were hostas. Now, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with hostas. They are not my favorite. And I'll have to tell you that digging them out from in here was a nightmare. But I have gotten them all out, and now you can see there's a lot of allium in here. I know that some of these allium are purple sensation. I can't remember the other variety. I know that I planted more purple sensation, Schuberti, and the spherocephalon ones, which are the, hear me pulling out those botanical names? Aren't you impressed?
Yes, very.
Yeah.
The spherocephalons are the drumstick alliums. And I just love the way they look. So we'll see how they come out. And then lots of the oriental poppies in here, which I really love. most of my cottage garden is pinks and purples and whites, a little bit of light yellows, but I make a concession for those wonderful sort of orangey oriental poppies. Now, I don't know if you can see them, but can you see in the corner of my house in the garden who's there? Can you see him?
The
I don't know if
poppies?
you can see him.
No.
Look on the ground behind that
You're
garden
talking-
leaf. Can you see the chipmunk? No?
Oh, yes. Yep. Yeah, I just saw her move at the corner
Oh,
there.
Yeah, we have a lot of them, and we will sit at our table here on the patio in the morning, like we did this morning, and have breakfast. And it is just one of my favorite places and my favorite times of the day to have the morning sun and the breeze and smell all the amazing flowers. The birds flit back and forth from the trees and the bushes to the feeders and the fountains. And the chipmunks are running around our feet. And the bees, and it's just such a joy. So down here, the creeping phlox is doing its thing. It's looking really wonderful. And right here, this thing that looks dead is an amazing hibiscus.
Mm.
And I mean, that thing is incredible. It is dramatic. You think at this time of the year, oh, it's died. It hasn't made it through the winter, but it has. It just takes a look at then as head. It's so spectacular. There are irises and there are tons of the flowers. And then I've planted.
Your screen is frozen, Jenny.
That was me. Hey, are you there?
Oh, we can hear you now.
We can hear you now.
Can you? Okay. I think I was too near the house. You hearing me okay now again?
Yes.
Okay. So in here I have a Jose lilac. There are lots of flax. There's sedums. There's lupin. There's snow in summer. There's turtlehead, lavender, delphiniums. Knockout rose. Wonderful. Open up ding clockery. It's just a nice way to lighten up. I think. This is some just I'm pulling out a bazillion.
Your screen is frozen again, Jennifer.
And here you can see daffodils that Can you see me okay?
No.
No.
Can you see everything or hear?
We're still back at the turtle heads. Oh, now you've moved.
Oh no.
Yep.
Now we can see you.
Okay. All right.
The screen keeps
So-
freezing.
I'm sorry.
Baby girl.
So these are some of the daffodils that I planted that have really done amazingly well. To move now, and hopefully I will not lose you, but I'm going to move back to the potager so that you can get an idea of what that is, okay? So we'll walk through here, and hopefully when I get out to the other side, you will still be able to see me and see things and hear me. Please post it. You able to me? Hello?
We can hear you, but you're not moving.
So we'll give it a Are you seeing anything?
No.
Just the barn. I think
Guys?
that's the barn. Just the barn.
Okay, so no, that's actually the back of the house. Okay, so you're seeing
Oh.
things now?
It's not moving though.
Oh. Huh. Nothing?
Nothing.
Oh, crud. Oh my. I'm very disappointed. I am moving around in hopes that you will be able to see something. And move to the other side of the yard.
The
Oh,
picture.
I can see it now.
You can see it
the
now?
Raised beds.
Yes, I can.
Yay!
Raised
Yay.
beds.
Yes. So something was interfering over on the other side of the potager. So this is the potager, okay? It's organized. It's not that controlled chaos of my cottage garden. So we've laid down tons of wood chips on top of cardboard. And honestly, I am such a huge fan of cardboard and not digging. I probably have, you know, miles of cardboard in my yard. Again, just like everything else, this is a work in progress, but it was all about making this easy, easy to harvest, easy to rotate crops, and also making it aesthetically pleasing. So way down at the end, you'll see that there is a structure with a dish for water. I hope you can see that. And then on either side of it, behind it, I have 2 elders. Directly behind it, I have a pie cherry tree. Then in the furthest box is a lot of herbs, and I've planted my beans this year. In the middle box, I planted shallots, and the peppers are going in there. This closest box has strawberries. You'll follow me, okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the little pond. Again, water is such a wonderful feature to have in a garden, both for the sound, for critters, because the birds will actually get into my leaf and bathe. We have squirrels and chipmunks drinking out of it. And last summer, we had a resident frog we named Trevor, who got huge. He was absolutely huge. He was the king of the pond. And this year I've started doing some plantings around the pond. Last year I also had some water plants, and I'm going to try to source water lilies for that. In the center where the green posts are, those are all high bush blueberries, different varieties. Across the back there, I have raspberries, and behind them I have my rhubarb patch, which I both use for harvesting to eat, but also for my leaves so that I can make concrete garden leaves from them. Then in that furthest square, currently there's a leftover garlic from last year, some onions, and that's where one of my tomato plants is going to go. And in the next square closest, another of my tomatoes will go, and I have some onions in there. And then on just the other side, the box on just the other side of the arbor, there's a Rosa rugosa that is absolutely beautiful, smells amazing. And of course you can harvest the petals for tea or for whatever else you'd like to use culinary wise. And there's some mint in there. Then in this box closest to the arbor, there's a horseradish. There is radishes. And then I hope I don't lose you. Walk a little bit this way. Please let me know if I lose you. Then I have the kale. In this box, I have lettuce and cucumbers and some carrots. And in this box, I have onions and Swiss chard. So this is the general layout. I'll try to walk this way. I hope I don't lose you. This is which is nice understory.
You're not
in that
moving
spot,
again. Oh, there we
in
go.
the summertime. Oh crap. Oh yeah, can you see it okay?
You're moving now, yes.
You okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to do this so that you could see the arbor. And these are dwarf arborvitaes that I have here and on the other side. I am going to be creating a patio on the other side. And I'm going to be putting more garden space out there to plant the pumpkins. So, you know, it's certainly not done. I've planted, and every year I plant under the arbor on either side, morning glories. So there are morning glories that will be growing up and over the arbor. And then my peas are planted there. So the peas grow up and over the arbor. And it's just so wonderful to walk under there and be surrounded by the flowers and the peas. You can stand under there and pick them. It's just such an enjoyable experience. So I'm going to try not to go too much further, but I'm going to turn around so that you can get a sense of my silk. Can you see okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this gives you a sense of the rest of the property. It goes I have a compost pile, we have people over. Can you see the daffodils right here behind these chairs?
Yes.
Yes.
That is the hugel bed that Marie and I were talking. That is Doug. That is and Rhonda. And I put a little bit of manure. And then where that arbor is, that is the entrance to what is slowly becoming a woodland garden. There are hostas planted in front on the left there. Just them in the last couple of years, we have mayapple. I don't know where it came from. It just spontaneously showed up. And it's wonderful. And then coming back up this way, this is an apple tree that I discovered a few years ago that we've started to prune and take care of. And it is in full bloom and so beautiful. But all extending up this way is what I call the woodland border. And I've been gardening for a long time, and we all know how hard it is, hard work. So again, I'm trying to make things less onerous so that I can truly enjoy the space rather than slave over it. I love the woodland border because it does not have to be fussy. I pull out the stuff I really don't want, you know, but I don't agonize over it. I let the natural plants that want to be in there, as long as they're not thorny and invasive, I let them be, but I'm planting in among them. So I've been increasing the daffodils every year. You can see that there's a forsythia that's going by, and this beautiful azalea that was here that's going by. There, I planted some hostas in here, and there are snowdrops and lots of paperwhite narcissus, and there's ferns. Marie, do you recognize this guy? I hope
Yes,
you
I do.
That was a gift from Marie. And then there's another azalea that I've planted. These trees were all here and just have changed a bit as time has gone on. There's one that came down that is rotting that I'm leaving, because why would I remove it? It's decomposing and it's feeding the soil. And I want this to be as much like a woodland, a natural woodland would be, as possible. I did plant some of the evening primrose that I was talking about that are so bossy and are really taken over in the front. This is shady. They still do well. They just grow a little differently in here than they would in full sun. And there's some hosta coming up. I've also planted some of my bleeding heart. I moved it because it too was going berserk out front. I just planted up these little purple petunias in this old watering can. This is a garden bench that my ex-husband made for my parents many years ago, and that came back to me after they passed. So again, you know, putting things in your space that have meaning for you is just as important as the plantings. So I'll get close. You can see right now, naturalized kind of everywhere, are violets. And there's some wonderful little, you know, sort of magenta-y purpley ones and bicolored ones. That is a volunteer chestnut tree right there. And more hostas. This is a columbine I just planted. There are forget-me-nots. And I just planted this sand cherry. Anybody else have any sand cherries?
No.
Well, I wanted a tree here of sorts, and it can be a bush or tree, but I wanted something in this space, again, to give a little bit of sense of privacy. And right next to it, you can see the Solomon seal, which is just so tall. It's as tall as the sand cherry right now. And these are daylilies that I'm trying to slowly rehome, moving them around the yard to different places to get them out of here. They don't bloom very well here because it's a shade. And there's some forget-me-nots. This is a Japanese maple that I planted a couple of years ago. I had one before it just didn't make it, and I was really bummed. But this one seems to like where it is, and I'm hoping it will continue to do well. I really wanted something with beautiful fall foliage. And that's something else to think about. Not just what's going to look good now, but what's going to look nice in the other times of the year. So there's a lot of vinca here. You can see they're beautiful little purple. And they just kind of go where they want, and I am okay with that. This is the large parent chestnut tree. And then under there, I have another Solomon seal, but it is a variegated one. So the leaves are really interesting. And then I have some bleeding heart that is blooming. And more of it. I also have some astilbe in here. And there's an old tree stump here with some pretty incredible funguses on it, fungi. And then this is chipmunk territory. You can see one of the many holes. So I'm going to walk backwards because part of what I love about this little walkthrough, when I was talking about thinking about your space and how it's going to be used, you know, a lot of times it's not necessarily a space that is you're going to hang out in. It can be a space that's simply a path and a walkthrough. These are Brunera. Look, another botanical name. But this is one type, and then I have these with the silvery, you know, sort of variegated leaves too, which are just so bright blue in this shady space. So this is the south side of the house, but it's shady. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So we're about back in the front, but these are the forsythia that I planted that are going by. And underneath the middle one, I've actually planted a clematis. My hope is that it's going to grow up and use the forsythia as its trellis, essentially. And so when the forsythia has gone by later in the season, I'm hoping that the clematis will be in bloom. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Mm.
And then this mess is grapevine. These are wild grapes that were here. We desperately need to get way up top, and do not ask me how we're going to do it, and cut that, bring it down lower, because these actually produce small but amazing grapes that make delicious jelly. So here we are back in the front. And I am going to go back over to the table to give some last little thoughts. And if you can bear with me, I'm going to try to switch back to the laptop. See if I can turn this around just in case. Okay, can you see me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll just stay here just so I don't risk losing you again. So a couple of thoughts for people. Now, in the beginning, I mentioned, you know, one of the most important things that I do is I ask, how am I going to use this space? What's it going to be utilized for? What's the aesthetic? And then I try to get a clear feeling for how I want this space to feel. You want it to be vibrant? Do you want it to be peaceful? You know, how do you want it to feel? And then, of course, you have to do the practical thing and think, okay, how much money do I have to sink into this project? The nice thing about gardening is that, like many things, you can spend, you know, as little or as much as you want. and everything in between. But you don't have to have anything fancy or invest a whole lot of money to get started on a project. Save your newspaper, save your cardboard, get plants from other gardeners who have too much of something. We all do. Seeds that you can get for free. You can craft things for your garden that are things, supports for plants to climb on, or make your own trellises or fencing, so there's so many ways to get around the money issue. And then, think about how much time and energy do I need to create and maintain this space? That's an important thing to think about, because those of us who love to garden and love plants know that we can go a little nuts. And I won't say too many plants, right? Because there's no such thing as too many plants. But we can just go a little crazy and say, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to have that. And then you realize I don't have enough time to either create this the way I want to, and then we're disappointed and we're frustrated, or we get it in and then we just don't have the time to maintain it and we're disappointed and we're frustrated. So thinking practically about how much time and energy you have to establish the space and maintain it, I think is really important. And then after that, you can start thinking about the forms and types of plants, and a color palette. Go with things that resonate with you. And pretty much, there are rules per se, but, there are no rules. Put in what makes you happy, but choosing what makes you happy, and putting it in a way that will have the most impact, I think is what's going to work ultimately. Not spreading things out and putting them in rigid rows like soldiers, but putting things together in groups and clumps, mass planting, like the daffodils that I showed you earlier. Just don't put in a few here, a few there, a few over there, but mass planting them is a wonderful way to really make an impact. Now in the woodland garden, that's different. In the border, that woodland border, that's not naturally how you would necessarily see them. So, putting them in sort of randomly makes sense. And then the last thing is thinking about your senses, planting things that appeal to all the senses, so that once again, going back to the beginning, you're really creating a landscape that is an immersive experience. I think that's what so many of us enjoy about those, botanical gardens and the big gardens that we go to visit. So I'm sorry for all the glitchy technical stuff. I really do apologize for that. And perhaps I should have actually taken you and walked you around when we were doing the trial earlier. But I do hope that you did get to see most of what I wanted to show you, and that it was interesting and that you got something from it. So thank you.
Can I
We
share
did.
something
Thank you
really
very much.
quick?
Yes.
Okay, well, in case anyone else doesn't know, Jennifer's a master gardener and does garden design. And one of the things that she helped me with at my previous garden in Bodenham was, it was kind of like like Mother Nature went out and went bleh, because my garden was just right in the front yard. And there was no really rhyme or reason to it. And sorry, now I got my dog excited. One of the quick things that she had mentioned to me was to think about, she came over to do a garden consult with me. This is what happened. And she said, think about repeating some of these colors around to bring more cohesiveness around. I had these little white cerestiums, I think they're called. And that kind of stuck in my mind of, okay, let me repeat that. They were small and kind of tiny. and they were a bright white in a sea of like green. And so just having a little clump in one place didn't make a lot of sense, but kind of spreading it out did. But the biggest thing I took from it was in the middle of my garden, I had cone flowers and echinacea, if we want to, if I can
Yeah,
show
that was
off my knowledge
fascinating.
there. And they were huge. They were taller than me. It was a huge clump. And I just loved it. And she had a suggestion off to the side of the main garden. I had bricked in a big circle where I had lots of pots of herbs. She said, you could take the cone flowers and separate them around the perimeter of that bricked in area. So I did that, and I only got 1 year there of enjoying it that way, but it just created a whole different feel to that area. It felt cozy. It felt more like a sanctuary there than it did if it had just been opened up to, you know, if there hadn't been anything around it, because it was almost like a fence, but it was a fence of flowers,
Right.
and I loved it.
Well, I'm glad. That makes me
I
feel
miss
good.
it.
Yeah. Well, you know, and that's sort of the same thing I was going for when I was talking about the cottage garden and the fact that our house is pretty close to the road, but I knew I wanted to have that patio area and I wanted to create a sense of intimacy. Not that I wanted to block it off from the road or, you know, anything like that, but I wanted to create that sense of intimacy. And so doing that by having altering your plantings, having some vertical plantings. I wanted to have a specimen tree, and that was going to be one vertical planting, and that's where that weeping crab came from. I already had the lilac, so I had some of those, you know, very prominent vertical pieces, and then the rest of it, you know, was filling in different heights underneath and around all that area. And so it doesn't close us off, but it creates this sort of sanctuary, and it brings in the wildlife. And that's the other piece of gardening that is so important to me. It's not just for us to enjoy us and plants. It's all that those plants bring in, not just that they bring us in, but that they bring all the pollinators. It brings the birds. It brings the little critters who are running around. And that to me is so important. We have like 10 bird feeders in the yard. We love having the birds there, and they so appreciate having the bushes and the trees and all of those other plants so that they can fly back and forth safely and perch in and eat. So eat from. So that's also really important. And then that whole idea of mass planting, or trying to control our natural urges as plant lovers to go out and buy every plant on the planet and plop it in our yard or say, I'll find a place for that. I still do it. It's hard. But when you are planning a space, to limit your choices and then repeat them, as Marie was talking about, you know, if you have a big clump of something, instead of going out and buy a new plant, divide it and repeat those clumps throughout your garden space. And then when we talk about having things blooming at, you know, something blooming all the time for interest, or blooming in different areas, if you're dividing a clump, you know that that clump's going to be blooming in all those different areas at the same time. So there will be something of interest, and it won't look so disjointed. Also, you'll bring some continuity, and it'll seem less chaotic and like has no rhyme or reason. So that's the other reason for doing that. And you can create that sense of intimacy and sort of a little sanctuary simply by choosing the plantings and then arranging them in that way. You don't have to close it off with a fence or with some other hard structure. You can create it simply by the plantings you choose. So thank you, Marie.
Thank you.
See who else.
So
is
you're
being-
the owner
I
of, you're the owner of the Magic Garden.
Yes.
And you're a business, you sell your artwork that you create out of nature. And also you help people design their gardens. That's
So,
what you do, correct?
well, among many other things. I mean, I'm still working my day job as a nurse 2 days a week
Great.
in a pediatric practice, but I'm an artist and craftswoman, and so I have the Magic Garden business as a way to, yes, sell my art and craft. And then I also do some garden consultations. That's really what I am. I mean, I don't have a
Right.
degree in landscape design or horticulture or botany. I'm just me. And
Right.
you know, like so many of us have learned over time. And yes, I did do the Master Gardener course just to get a little bit more of the science behind things and a little more knowledge. And mostly what I've gotten out of that is a lot of great resources, which is so helpful to any of us who garden. But you know, I enjoy helping people who have never gardened, or they have a space, they don't know how to get going, or they inherited a space and they're like, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what's here. You know, that's kind of what I really enjoy doing. And so, you know, I have the occasional garden client, but mostly my energy is put into my art and craft and working in my own garden. And it's wonderful. As I said, I wish I could find a way for somebody to pay me oodles of money just to stay at home and do whatever the heck I want to do, but I haven't been able to figure that one out yet.
So if somebody wanted to get a hold of you, would they contact you through your website and or Facebook page? The
Yeah,
Magic Garden website? And
yeah. So I have my own personal page, you know, Jennifer Mullin, but I have just a fun page posting all the kinds of things that I enjoy, gardening and other stuff, the Magic Garden. But then I also have my art and business page, which is the Magic Garden Wild Earth Art and Craft, which is, you know, specifically for my art. And so any of those ways is fine. They can certainly do it through my website as well. My information is out there, my phone number, everything. So
okay, thank you.
thank you so much. Thanks
Thank you for
again.
taking the time to do this. We really
Well,
appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks for putting up with all the glitchy stuff. I appreciate it too. Take care, everybody. Have a good
Thank-
weekend.
Bye.
Thank you, Jenny.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.